Another one of my favorite summertime desserts is a large pizza-sized baked sugar cookie covered with a layer of sweet cream cheese and topped with a strawberry glaze mixed with freshly sliced strawberries and kiwi. Herein lies my strawberry kiwi sugar cookie pizza. Fruit with cookies and cream. Yes please. Fruit pizzas have been around for years. I used to have them with a pie crust, like a strawberry shortcake. Once I started baking, I really wanted to change that traditional pie crust to a sugar cookie. I modified my favorite sugar cookie recipe to create a sturdy crust, and voila, with some sweet cream and fruit, you get a fantastic summer dessert. For my strawberry kiwi sugar cookie pizza, you'll need, for the sugar cookie crust, butter, sugar, egg, vanilla, almond extract, all-purpose flour, baking powder, and salt. For the sweet cream cheese filling, we have cream cheese, thawed whipped topping, and powdered sugar. For the strawberry kiwi glaze, there's strawberry gelatin like Jell-O, cornstarch, strawberries, kiwi, and water. We're going to begin by making the sugar cookie crust. So you need a large mixing bowl. You can use your stand mixer bowl. You can just use a regular bowl. And then if you're using a stand mixer bowl, you're going to need your paddle attachment. If you're using a regular bowl, you can just use a spoon or an electric mixer. And then to the bowl, we're going to add 6 tablespoons of softened butter, and that's 84 grams. With the machine on low, we're going to add 100 grams, which is a ½ cup of granulated sugar. And then we're just going to whip this again until the sugar is mixed in well with the butter. Okay, I've just cracked 1 egg, and we're going to pour that into our sugar and butter mixture. While that's whipping, we're going to add ½ of a teaspoon of vanilla and ¼ of a teaspoon of almond extract. Our butter, egg, and sugar and all extracts are mixed in well. In a medium bowl, we're going to do a quick stir of our dry ingredients. So we're going to add 156 grams, which is 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. If you're using a measuring cup, just make sure that you scoop your flour and then level it off from the cup. We're going to add ½ of a teaspoon, which is 2 grams of baking powder, and 3 grams, which is ½ of a teaspoon of salt. We're going to give this just a quick mix. Turn your machine on low. And in stages, we're just going to add our flour mixture to the butter mixture. Just add maybe ¼ cup or so at a time and let it blend in with the butter. And then just keep adding it until you have added all your flour. And once it's mixed in, then your batter is done. Okay, so now that the dough is finished mixing, we just need to cover it and set it in the fridge. And it could be just for at least an hour. It could be overnight, so you can make this dough ahead of time. I'm actually going to put my dough in a separate bowl just because it's a little bit of dough and I don't want this big bowl hanging out in my fridge when I could use it for something else. Allowing the dough to sit in the fridge for about an hour allows the dough to firm up a little bit, just making it a little bit easier to spread out in the pan. Store it in the fridge until you're ready to make your cookie pizza. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees. We're going to prepare a 12-inch round pizza pan, or you can use a large casserole dish as long as it's something that has high sides and that will bake a cookie about the size of a 12-inch round pizza pan. Now my pizza pan has pretty shallow sides, so I'm going to be transferring my cookie from this pan to a different dish to top it. But if you have a pan that has high sides, and you don't have to do any transferring like I'm going to do. If that's the case, then you might just grease your pan so that the cookie will come out of it easily. If not, since I'm transferring mine, what I'm going to do is actually butter my pizza pan and put parchment paper down so that I can lift my cookie out of the pizza pan and then just transfer it to another dish. But again, that's an extra step that you may not have to do. But I like the size of this, and since I'm calling it a pizza, I want to be able to use a round pizza pan to bake the cookie in. Okay, if you're going to use parchment paper on a butter pan, you're going to put your parchment paper, and I cut my parchment paper to the size of the bottom of the pizza pan, and then I'm just going to lay the paper down so that it forms to the cookie sheet bottom, and then flatten it out so I don't have any creases in my actual cookie once it bakes. And so that we ensure that the cookie comes out of this pan easily, I'm also going to add butter and grease the top of my parchment paper. And I've made this pizza so many times, and this is the way I always do it just because I like the round shape. I don't have any issues removing my cookie from the pan. And it's ready for the actual cookie dough now. Okay, with our pan aside, now we're going to roll and shape the dough. Whenever I roll cookie dough out and I have to use flour, I always use sugar as well. So for this, since we're gonna have to roll out the cookie dough so that we can actually place it in the pan, I'm just going to lightly flour my work surface, and I'm gonna add a little bit of cane sugar to it, just so the sugar keeps the dough from sticking to the surface. And it gives a little bit of sweetness on the outside since that's what's on the inside. It's not just flour on the inside, it's flour and sugar. So just scoop your dough out. Since our dough's been in the refrigerator for a little bit, it's not so soft like it was before. So I'm gonna add a little mound of sugar and flour over here. And then we're gonna roll the dough out. If your dough is really soft, you're gonna just probably press it in the pan. Mine's pretty soft, even though I've had it in the refrigerator. But if you leave it in the refrigerator overnight, that butter is really gonna harden. So you might need to roll it out into the circle that you want to fit in the pan. But since mine is fairly soft right now, I'm gonna just sort of get it going with rolling it out, and then I'm just gonna press it in the pan. I think that's just gonna be a little bit easier just because it's gonna be difficult to lift up off of the surface. So I think that's good enough for now. So I'm gonna go ahead and lift it and put it in the pan, like so. And then I'm just gonna press it out. Keep your fingers floured. Just try to keep the dough pretty equal as far as thickness around so that you don't have any section that's much thicker than the other. If you happen to have a little mini roller, that helps too. Notice how that mini roller just goes all the way to the edge. It gives it a little bit of a side. Our cookie is ready for the oven for 18 to 22 minutes or until golden brown. To make the sweet cream cheese, you're gonna add 8 ounces or 1 package of cream cheese to a medium bowl, and then we're just gonna whip it until it's nice and smooth. To this, we're gonna add 90 grams, which is 3/4 of a cup of powdered sugar. Start mixing on low because this powdered sugar is gonna fly everywhere. We're just gonna mix until it's well combined. No lumps from the cream cheese or the powdered sugar, so that's nice and well mixed. Okay, the last step for this stage is we're going to add 9 ounces of whipped topping, and this is thawed. You could use whatever whipped topping you like. You could use Cool Whip. I like the So Cocoa Whip is my preferred brand, but it doesn't matter. And then you're just going to put that over your cream cheese mixture. And we're just gonna fold in the whipped topping. We'd like for it to stay aerated as much as we can. Keep it aerated, but we're also gonna refrigerate it so it won't be too runny when we need to put it on our pizza. For folding it, cut in the center of your mixture, and then you can fold up and over and around. Cut in the center, and fold up and over and around. That looks good, everything's blended in well. Let's go ahead and cover it. We're gonna set it in the fridge until we're ready to top our pizza crust. Our sugar cookie pizza crust is out of the oven, and mine was in there for 18 minutes, and you can see how dark and brown it is around the edges. And we don't want this to be a soft cookie because we're gonna top it with some heavy toppings, and so we wanna make sure it has a good structure. So don't underbake your cookie, and we need to let it cool completely or else the toppings will melt and run off the edges. So we're just gonna set this aside until it cools. In the meantime, we'll continue making the rest of the toppings. Go ahead and prepare your fruit. You're gonna slice 1 pound, which is about a pint or 2 cups of strawberries. That's what you see. All of this is 1 pound of strawberries. And I like slices here instead of chunks because I like to be able to see the slices on the fruit pizza since this will be the top. You're also going to peel, like you see here. I just use a potato peeler when I peel my kiwi. We're looking again for about the same amount of slices as we have for the strawberries. And so that's gonna be 4 to 5 kiwi, about 2 cups. And then of course, kiwi has the pretty seeds in the center, so you can just slice them up just like you would the strawberries. And then just add them to the strawberries, and again, slices again will make it pretty to see the kiwi and the strawberries on top. Our fruit is sliced. If your fruit is not fully ripened, don't worry because it's gonna be added to a lot of sweetener with the strawberry gelatin and it will soften up as it sits. So this is one of those great recipes that you can use both ripe and unripened fruit. Put in the refrigerator until we need it. In a large saucepan, we're gonna add 100 grams, which is a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. We're gonna add in 1/4 teaspoon or 1.5 grams of salt, 32 grams or 1/4 cup of cornstarch. We're gonna add 85 grams, 3 ounces or 1 small box of strawberry gelatin. And we're gonna pour in 8 ounces, which is a cup of water. Turn your stove on to medium-high heat and then start whisking. Right now, our Jell-O looks a little bit cloudy from the cornstarch, but as the cornstarch dissolves and as the mixture boils, it will blend in with the red color of the gelatin. So this process will take about 10 minutes. We're waiting for our gelatin to come to a boil, and we will stir until it thickens. Cornstarch has dissolved, and I love the cornstarch in this recipe because it makes the glaze thick, and we want it to set up on the pizza, right? So you know when your glaze is done, when you've got a little bit of resistance going against your whisk, and when you lift your whisk, you can see gelatin sort of hanging onto the whisk. Or you could take a spoon, lift the spoon up, pour the gelatin off, and you still have quite a bit of film that remains on the spoon. That's how you know your gelatin is done. Turn the stove off, remove the saucepan from the heat, and this is optional, but I'm gonna add a half of a teaspoon of almond extract just because I loved almond extract with strawberries. Give that a quick whisk. Now we're gonna go ahead and add our fruit. It might seem a little bit early because the sauce is warm. Since I have some kiwis that aren't fully ripened, I really do want to go ahead and add my fruit now. Even if they are ripened, go ahead and add your fruit. The heat will soften them up a bit, and it'll sweeten them up if they're not as sweet as you would like. Stir the fruit in with the glaze, and we're just going to set this aside at room temperature and let the glaze with the fruit cool down before we add it to our pizza topping. We certainly don't want it to melt the cream that it's going to be sitting on top of. So this will take at least an hour, maybe a little bit longer for it to cool down. Now that everything is cooled to room temperature, it's time to assemble our dessert pizza. As you can see, the sugar cookie that I have in the pan, it doesn't have enough elevated sides to hold all this topping on. So I'm going to transfer mine to a dish here. Actually, it's a serving platter that has high sides, and this serving platter works great for my needs. And look at that, the cookie just pops right out of the pan, and because we use parchment paper comes right off. And you can see it's a nice well-baked cookie. It's brown on the bottom, just like we need it to be. It's going to be sturdy to hold our toppings, and then I'm just going to place it right in my serving platter. Super easy. And if you're using the same cookie sheet where you cooked your sugar cookie in, then we'll just start from here. And we're gonna layer the cream first, and then we'll put our strawberry kiwi topping on top. Begin by spreading our cream topping over the top of our cookie. To get it all around the edges too. Try to keep an even layer. You can go back and just sort of smooth everything out. One thing I know is that our glaze is going to ooze down the sides until it congeals in the refrigerator. So I do like to go to the edge with my cream and cover up the cookie, because that glaze is going to just ooze wherever there are cracks. Now you can see while we have a high top, we're going to need it for the glaze. Okay, our glaze is still a little bit on the runny side because it needs to congeal in the refrigerator, but it is at room temperature now, so it'll be easy to spread on our pizza. And I do like to start by spreading the fruit around and letting the glaze just sort of ooze where it wants to once I get the fruit down. If you wanted to make this really fast, you could forego making the gelatin and just put sliced fresh fruit on top of the cream here, and don't even worry about having any kind of a gelatin or jello component to it. It does add a pretty color. You get that pretty red on top, but you're gonna get pretty fruit color on top anyway. If you wanted to go back and spread the fruit around a little bit more, you could do that. Now you can see why I needed to transfer my pizza to a different platter, because the fruit has filled it to the top of this platter with high sides. We need to let this sit up because we need that jello to congeal. So we're gonna cover it with plastic wrap and set it in the refrigerator for a couple of hours. All right, let's cut into our dessert. I find it's best to cut into this like you would a pizza or a pie. I think a sharp knife works best. Okay, notice how easily it lifts up from the cookie crust at the bottom. Let's check out our layers. We've got that cookie base, a nice balance of the cookie base with a cream layer. It's not really thick. And then you have the strawberry topping with our green and strawberry fruit. The cream and the glaze, I think, are equal in thickness. The strawberry gelatin adds a pop of color, along with the green and the kiwi and the black seeds. I find strawberries and kiwi go very well together, since strawberries are usually pretty sweet and the kiwis can be a little tart. Now that's a beautiful summer dessert. This strawberry kiwi sugar cookie pizza is a great way to use up those summer strawberries. If you don't have access to fresh, why not frozen? Just thaw them and slice or cut into pieces. You can also leave out the kiwi and make a strawberry pizza. Just make sure to double the strawberries. If you've never had fruit pizza with sugar cookie crust, you should totally give it a whirl. It's a household fave in my house this time of year. Thanks for tuning in, liking, and subscribing. Until next time, go bake the world.